Hello, everybody. I am Grouchy Greg, and I want to welcome you to a sit down with Curtis Scoon. Curtis Scoon, or Scoon as he is known on the street, is a legend around Hollis, Queens. His name was already ringing bells, but it took a trip around the world in October of 2002 when he was implicated for his role in the murder of Jam Master Jay. Now, 18 years later, the feds have indicted 2 suspects. That happened in August of 2020. And Curtis Scoon, over the past 18 years, has been working to shake the stigma of that event. So we're going to talk about that and a lot more. Welcome, Scoon. How you doing?
Oh, I'm good, man. I'm good.
It's good, good. I feel you. So I think the first thing I want to talk about is what are your thoughts on the August 2020 indictments of Ronald Tennard Washington and Carl Little D. Jordan for the murder of Jam Master Jay?
Oh, man. There's a lot of thoughts there. If it really was those 2 guys, why did it take so long? That's the first thought. Carl Lil D. Jordan, he is the son of Jam Master Jay's, I guess you could say best friend and protector in the neighborhood, called Big D. Jordan. And Tennard Washington, he actually lived in Jay's family house at the time of Jay's death. Like, these are people that are really close to Jay. And again, I don't have any, inside knowledge or anything, but you would think that the people in the studio knew who did it from the start.
Right. Well, that leads me to an interesting question about Ronald Washington Tennard. Prior to October 30th, he was on a robbery spree. That is well documented. And he went on a robbery spree afterwards. I read in court documents that he was frequently intoxicated out of his mind, and he had done so many robberies that at this point he couldn't remember what ones he had done and what ones he hadn't done. And when you consider the fact of somebody of that character or that background, the indictment is alleging that there was a drug deal gone bad, and Tennard was mad that Jay had been cut out of that. And as a result, this 17-year-old at the time, Carl Little D. Jordan, came in and was the trigger man. How plausible is that to you, considering the fact that, the people in the studio, as you stated, Randy Allen, Lydia Allen, what motive would they have to not come forward for 18 years over those 2? Tennard has been in jail. Little D, okay, if he's close with Jam Master Jay through Big D, that's one thing, but I don't know. Do you think the feds are on the right trail?
I got no way of knowing. And that's Lydia High, not Lydia Allen. She has a different last name than her brother. That's H-I-G-H. This is what I know about the case. October 30th, 2002 was a Wednesday night. It was a rainy, cold night. Run DMC was scheduled to perform at an NBA game, I believe in Cleveland or somewhere, because they were doing, the halftime shows and stuff like that, trying to make money. At the last minute, for whatever reason, the show was canceled. And what that means to me is that Jay wasn't even supposed to be in the studio that night, because he's supposed to be doing a show, right? His studio was in a building that housed a company called Prime America that had had weekly meetings on Wednesday nights. What that also means is that there was a lot of foot traffic in that building. And the importance of that is these people did not enter and leave without being seen, right? The studio also had a surveillance camera to identify people coming in that they would buzz in. For one, I don't think Jay's death, whatever the reason was premeditated because he wasn't supposed to be there. That's number one. Number two, I don't believe that the people in the studio let someone in who they didn't know, you know?
Yeah.
And just for the record, I hate that I even have to say this, but not only have I never been to that studio, but I didn't even know where it was because I wasn't part of their circle. When as we talk and I start breaking down the character of the people Jay kept around him, you would understand why I wasn't part of that circle, you know?
Yeah. So let's start with Tenard, and the two accused killers. Tenard Washington, what was he like in the neighborhood? I mean, I know he was notorious as a stick-up man, as a stick-up guy, but I guess my question is in the early implications, they said, I think almost from day one, Tenard has always been fingered as gunman number, person number one. Person number two is always at a question mark. Why would they associate you with Tenard? Were you friendly with him in the neighborhood growing up?
Nah, Tenard was actually friends with Randy Allen, with Jay, with various people, but ultimately, Tenard was really a friend to nobody. Tenard he's just one of them dudes, man. Like, he's just bad news, always been. Just been bad news. He spent most of his life in prison. As a matter of fact, when he's on the street, he's really doing time. Right. That's how much he's institutionalized. I've never been to prison, man. I don't have any convictions. We have nothing in common. As a matter of fact, I wouldn't even cross the street with Tenard because I might get a ticket for jaywalking. Right. He can't break any rules without getting caught. Nobody who's trying to be out here in these streets would associate with Tenard. You hang with Tenard, you're going to prison, point blank.
So was Tenard according to the feds, Tenard was an early member and a part of the Hollis crew.
Hollis crew let me tell you, like, Hollis crew is not like, dudes from the streets will understand what I'm about to say. It's not like a gang or something, right? Your hood is your hood. So if you hang out on the boulevard or the avenue or whatever, you just, you rep your little hood, your little neighborhood. And if you got beef with other hoods, that goes on today, as a matter of fact. You know what I mean? Like, but inside every hood, you got cliques within the cliques. Like, it might be, for me, it might have been me, Yak, Brad, and Pep. You know what I mean? For Tenard, it might have been Tenard and Joe Maverick. You know what I mean? And everybody was together. If we was on the avenue and somebody came through, yeah, well, it's our hood, because that's what young boys do. You know what I mean? Like, I'm talking about late teens, early 20s, adolescents, indulging in adolescent shit, even though today it seems like old people do it. But back then, that's what kids did. You proved your manhood, your honor, your courage, all that shit. Tenard's an interesting guy, man. The last conversation I had with Tenard might have been in 1997. And I'll tell you the crux of that conversation and everything I say, because this is an open case. And I'm pretty sure law enforcement are going to go over this interview with a fine-tooth comb. And they can say a lot of things about me, but they can't say I'm a fucking liar, Yeah. Tenard in about 1997, it had been brought to my attention that Tenard and some other dudes were planning to how should I say, run up in my mom's house because they thought that something of value was there. You see, I wasn't living in New York, but I came back to New York because my brother had got in a really bad accident in Baltimore, and he was in Johns Hopkins Hospital in 1995. So when he went in the hospital, I was trying to handle his stuff, and I was staying in New York a lot. My girl lived in Brooklyn, but I was keeping my cars at my mother's house in Queens. Because they saw my cars at my mom's house, you know, these aren't the brightest people. So they're gonna make assumptions without any real evidence. They must have assumed that there was something of value in the house. But they all knew that if they was gonna rob me or do something like that, the plan must have been to kill me. You understand? Like, I'm not somebody you're gonna do something like that to and then be like, see you later, and be like, hey, what's up? You know what I mean? So anyway, I saw Tenard on the corner of my mom's block one day. And I was on foot and he was on foot. It was early in the morning. And he said, yo, Scoon, can I talk to you? I said, yeah, what's up, Tenard? He said, yo, man, I know people running around talking, saying that I'm planning to do this, that, the third, but ain't none of that true, and this, that, the other. And, you know, it's just me and him on the corner, man, probably about like 8 o'clock in the morning. And I said, Tenard, listen, you do what you do. I ain't got no problem with that, man. That's who you are. You understand? I said, but now that I know, or I've been told this, if I look out that window and I see you anywhere in the vicinity, I'm not going to try to figure out if you walking to the bus stop or looking for your lost pet. And Tenard looked at me and he said, yo, I understand. And that's my word. That's the last time we ever talked. And that might have been in 97. You know, like, taking has always been his thing. You know what I mean? Like, and he's not very good at it either. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's his personality. And ironically, when people said that it was me and Tenard who did that with Jay, that's when the streets started understanding that it wasn't me. Right. Because we got, you know, I know this is all hip hop, and I don't want to go in on hip hop on your platform, but
no, it's all good. Let's go.
Hip hop, man. Hip hop has created this pseudo gangster, pseudo street element. You know, it's not really street; it's street cosplay. So they indulge in a lot of gossip and, you know, just talking off the top of their head, not knowing what they're talking about. But the people in the streets, for real, when they heard me and Tenard did something together, they said, oh, hell no, that don't make no sense. Because there's a lot of things I'm leaving out, but it's known that Tenard and I, we like oil and water. You know what I mean?
Right.
Immediately, with people who mattered, people who moved the crowd, they was like, nah, that don't make no sense. Something ain't right here.
So
to goofballs, it made a lot of sense.
Right.
Just gave them something to talk about. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Right. Now, you know, that association, you know, you and Tenard, you know, from the Who Killed Jam Master Jay documentary that came out on Netflix, you know, they say that Randy Allen positively identified you as, you know, being one of the people.
Did they say that? I didn't watch it.
Yeah. You know, and you know, my question is why do you think Randy, if he did set off this conspiracy involving you?
So I don't know if Randy said that, right?
Right.
What I do know what Randy said that I know and heard, you know, after the funeral, Jay's brother Marvin and I think his cousin Fonzo, they went on Hot 97 and they were expressing suspicion of Randy Allen, right? And Bo wasn't with them. But Jay's family was represented by Marvin, who is now deceased, and his cousin Fonzo. And they were expressing, suspicions of Randy and so on and so forth. The following week, Randy Allen went on Hot 97, and this is all recorded. Anybody who wants to pull it up can pull it up. And Bo was with Randy. He wasn't with his uncle and his cousin, but he was with Randy, defending Randy. I don't know, maybe Bo really believes that Randy is innocent. But the part that means something to me is Randy made it clear in that interview that he didn't think I had anything to do with it.
Right.
He said that on record or at the radio station.
I remember.
You remember?
Yeah.
Yeah. You know what I mean? So, like, see, these dudes are like gossiping women. They say a lot of different things, and I don't know if they did it to try to throw the police off the trail. And again, I take responsibility for even being the type of person that they would believe could do something like that. Because the way I lived my life at a certain time, I'm the kind of person, I believe the best defense is a good offense. So as a defense mechanism, when I was moving around as a young dude, I ain't really show a whole lot of mercy. You know what I mean? Yeah. And that was more not out of being sadistic. That was more out of like, yo, let it be known, like, yo, I'm not the one. You know what I'm saying? So I put a lot of energy into developing an intimidating presence, and it came back to bite me in the ass in this one. Yeah.
Well, let's talk a little bit about your background in Hollis, because it's relevant to one of the questions I'm going to ask you in the documentary. They imply that you were a drug dealer in your early days. And they claim that you flew to California with Jay to arrange a coke deal. The coke deal supposedly went bad. And, that could have been a motive for the murder of Jay. Now I want to be clear. I want to be clear too to our viewers. In the same documentary, the police state that they investigated Scoon for hundreds of hours, and they spent hundreds of hours of manpower on him, and they have cleared him. So
it's self-explanatory that I'm still walking around. That I ain't never really been hiding. When the police wanted me, I contacted them. I mean, I had my lawyer contact them, Marvin Kornberg, and I was going in on November 4th to get questioned and possibly get arrested. Like I wasn't running from it. You understand? So my thing is talking about, from what I recall, from what they said, it was something that supposedly happened in 1995. And in 1996, Jay set up a meeting for me with Leor Cohen. I believe Nikki D was his assistant at the time, the female rapper Nikki D. And I mean, I didn't have no problems with Jay in 96. Why would I have a problem with him in 2002? I mean, hypothetically, let's just say that story is even real. In 1996, Jason Mizell set up a meeting with Leor Cohen for me because I was trying to do a dedication album for Randy Stretch Walker. Myself and my man Nichols, and at the time, the attorney Ed Woods, he was my entertainment attorney. And we went and we met with Leor. Leor was full of shit, but I mean, that's just Leor. But the fact of the matter is, if I had any issues with Jay, he wouldn't have set that meeting up for me.
Understood.
Yeah, now, so anything else that they talking about is irrelevant. If I had any issues with Jay, he wouldn't have set that meeting up with me in 1996. And I damn sure wouldn't have waited till 2002 to be angry about something that allegedly happened in 1995. So none of it makes sense. None of it makes sense. And again, that's why I'm walking around, been walking around, ain't never been afraid, getting locked up or anything else. Because you cannot prove something that didn't happen. They would have to legitimately go out and frame me. They'd have to do an OJ on me. And
well, I mean, to be honest with you, that's what it seems like happened.
They tried, but somebody, man.
So I want to stick. I want to stick with Leor. I don't mean to interrupt you, but I want to stick with Leor, and this is a segue into Little D, and Little D's father, Big D. Now, right after the murder, an anonymous source, a police officer, let us know that Big D and possibly Little D could have been involved. Big D did an interview with us, and he said he was at home working on his boiler that had blown out. He had
he a dusty motherfucker. No, but go ahead.
But he denied it, and he immediately said, listen, I would be talking to I would be looking at Randy Allen if I was looking at anybody. That's what he said. And I'm trying to understand, I've heard a number of things about Big D, including his involvement with law enforcement. I've heard that he's
been a confidential informant for a long time. Got strong relationships with the Queens DA's office. This is a fact. Yeah.
Do you think that that relationship helped amplify not only the police looking at you, but also Leor Cohen and some of the other people who came out afterwards, I believe, co-signed the theory that you had been involved in possibly in it?
Well, I think Leor, more than anything, I think he was just glad that it wasn't somebody in the music business. But let's be clear, the night that Jay got killed, Funkmaster Flex was on the radio on Hot 97. He didn't name any names, but he was saying he was just tired of dudes. He was alluding that people in the industry were responsible for Jay's death. And Flex took it hard, you know what I mean? And he was talking heavy that night. And the very next morning, Ed Lover was on, I think, was it 105? And doing the morning show, and he was crying. And he was saying the same thing. So the night Jay got killed, and the very next day, people in the industry thought somebody in the industry was responsible. And to be clear, they thought it was Supreme McGriff and Murder Inc. Now, why would Leor be concerned about that? It's evident. Murder Inc. was under Def Jam. Leor was running Def Jam. And Def Jam was under Universal. Vivendi, the French company that owned the majority stock in Universal, they were buying out Edgar Bronfman, who was Leor's direct boss, right? Bronfman took the money from Universal, and this negotiation was going on around the time Jay got killed. So Jay gets killed. There's all these, unfounded rumors about Murder Inc. and Supreme, and you got Irv Gotti and Supreme McGriff connected to Fat Cat and the killing of Edward Byrne. This is some real movie shit, you know what I mean? And again, we talking about the music industry. We talking about a lot of gangster cosplay. So anything that remotely resembles some serious shit going on, they revel in this because it's almost like, yeah, we real. Look, we in the middle of all of this. You know what I mean? Look, man, I know rappers. I'm cool with them and all that. But I can't speak for this generation. But for my generation, street dudes didn't rap, man. You know what I mean? Like, yo, that's not what we did. We didn't entertain or amuse people. You understand what I'm saying? Yo, nah, that's not what we did. It may have changed since then. Who knows? It's a lot. Everything's a lot different. But with Leo, back to Leo, you know, who knows, man? That happened on his watch because Supreme, Irv got a company called Murder Inc. Supreme, his signature on his two-way back then was the murderer in Murder Inc. Like, all of this stuff is some really damning stuff when people start gossiping about real things. When it's just entertainment, it's just like, you know, this is for marketing. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
But when something really happened, it's like, is it really for marketing or is this what's really going on? The lines have been blurred between reality, fiction, and fact. You understand? And that's kind of like the dangerous tightrope that hip hop started walking. So anyway, I'm sure Leo was glad to hear anybody's name that wasn't connected to him because, of course, we all know when Edgar Bronfman took his money from Universal, he went and got Warner Music, and Leo was like his right-hand man. You understand? Could these rumors or whatever affect the sale or the selling price? I don't know, but they probably could have affected Leo's chances of making that transition with him.
Right.
So I'm theorizing that it was in Leo's best interest to find out who did it or find a believable suspect. And that brings us back to Dusty Big D. You know what I mean? After Big D got exposed as being an informant because he took the stand and testified and did whatever he did, Jay got Leo a job at Rush Management. Back then, you know, you had Rush Management, Rush Associated Labels, Def Jam. You know, Russell was enterprising. Leo wasn't on equal footing with Russell back then. You know, he was really like working for Russell. Eventually, Russell kind of became a figurehead in his own company, but that's another story. But Jay got a job for Big D over at Rush Management, and he knew what Big D did. And it didn't matter. That was his friend. That was his childhood friend. You understand what I'm saying? And again, that's why I don't like to compare the music business to the streets. You know, for this dude to rap, take the stand, send another dude from the same block to prison for 25 to life, and then Jay get him a job, like, that's not gangster. You know, and I'm not even mad because he was a DJ. You know what I mean? Like, Jay wasn't really in the street. And when people start talking about him being a drug dealer, I don't know nothing about that.
Right.
Jay, I know, didn't sell drugs. You know what I mean? And if he did, he wasn't really good at it because at the time of his death, I believe he was in $400,000 in debt to the IRS.
Yeah.
Behind on payments to his house. He was just drowning in debt. He wasn't making no money. So if he was selling drugs, where was the money? You understand what I'm saying?
They say that he was dibbling and dabbling, you know, because of the financial pressure that he was under. But, you know, according to the indictment, you know, they believe that Jay was running drugs down to Baltimore and you know, dealing and flipping the drugs down there.
I don't know anything about that. What I do know is that, you know, he wasn't in the best financial shape. Again, I believe Big D, who worked for Leo, I believe Big D gave Leo my name. Now, who gave Big D my name? That's the question.
Right.
You see, and you know, the recent revelations, it opened my eyes to certain things because I couldn't understand, like, why this dude D was pushing my name so hard. I'm thinking maybe it was, you know, he was really trying to get justice for his boy or something. I mean, you know. But then when his son get arrested, I'm like, could that have been why he was pushing my name? You see,
well, that goes back to my original question as well, that, you know, an anonymous officer claims that they were both spotted around the studio the time of the murder. And that was That's what we were told, both of them. You know, now again, that's why I asked Big D, hey, listen, you know, were you there point blank? And he obviously denied it. And you know, the son. Now I want to focus on Little D, you know, because he was only 17 at the time this supposedly occurred. Now, one of the gunmen was allegedly 6 foot and 175 pounds.
80 pounds with a
185 pounds with a, you know.
And I'm 6'4", 250.
6'4", 250, no clothes. Tenard is, I think, 5'7" or 5'8".
He might be a little bit taller than that, but he's slim. Yeah.
Slim guy. Yeah. My question about the second gunman, you know, and even possibly a third accomplice that maybe hasn't been talked about, if this theory the feds are bringing forward is correct, you know, what could a 17-year-old, and you know, I know these are subjective questions for you, but did you know Little D, you know, growing up at the age at 17?
I really didn't. I knew who his mother was. His mother's this girl, lady named Jackie. I have a memory of Lil D, of when he must have been about, I don't know, maybe 5 years old, 5 or 6. We were all in California for a Run DMC show in Palo. It was an amphitheater in Palo Alto. I forgot what the thing was, and we had went out there, and they were there. I didn't travel with them. I flew from Atlanta. They all went from New York. Again, I didn't really socialize with them. The only reason I was there was because I had given Run some money, you know, like, because he had lost access to his funds. He was going through some kind of mental breakdown or something. Gave away all his money to Robert Tilton, the prosperity preacher or whatever. But anyway, I had sent Run some money. So then I flew out there to get with him. And before Run and them went on stage, they were praying in the back. And they turned down the lights and everything. And I'll never forget Lil D, man. He said, "Turn on these damn lights." And he was like 5 or 6 years old and turned the lights on. You know what I mean? And I was like, whoa, you know, like I laughed when he did it, but I started thinking like, yo, what's really going on with that kid? Because I wouldn't have done that. You know what I mean? At
right.
6 years. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Right.
But yeah, Run was in the middle of his prayer. He said, turn on these damn lights, or something to that effect. But he yelled, turn on these lights, and he turned them on, man. And I was like, whoa, man, this dude got behavioral issues. You know what I mean? But that's all I know about the kid, for real, man.
Well, you know, it's interesting because
make him a killer.
Of course, absolutely, yeah. Absolutely. I understand. You know, I was reading through some court documents, and they referenced the fact that aside from this indictment, I don't think he had any charges, you know, as an adult.
Lil D?
Yeah, Lil D. He had one charge as
did he get?
He had one charge when he was 17 for a shooting, and that's what I was gonna, you know, talk about was, you know, Bo was shot. I think it was, you know,
something.
Yeah, you know, in the stomach, I think, and it was, from what I heard, Lil D, you know, who did it.
Lil D got charged. He got arrested for it at first, but I don't know whatever happened with the case. You know?
Yeah. I mean, do you think that shooting, I mean, why, it could have been anything, but, you know, a murder suspect 10 years or 15 years later, I mean, do you think this was enough to scare some of the people in the studio into their behavior of, quite frankly, obstructing justice for 18 years?
You want me to tell you the God's honest truth, man, how I feel? For me, I don't like any of these people, but I swear to you, man, I just can't. It doesn't even make sense for them to plan to kill Jay. In my mind, man, this had to have been something spontaneous, an accident. Look, man, those people, they not like that, bro. You know,
well,
like, yeah.
Well, let's talk about some of the people in the studio, and then we'll move on to the next portion of the interview.
We
yeah.
Now,
okay.
I want to get off.
Okay, no doubt. You know, I just, you know, with Bo, you guys had a back and forth on Twitter, which resulted in him name checking you in one of his freestyles I was listening to on Facebook.
He's a rapper, man. You know,
he's a rapper, and I liked what I heard. You know, all the aesthetics were there. You know,
he's been doing it for 20-something years. He should be pretty good at it. You know, but yeah, here's the thing, right? With Bo, I remember Bo when Bo didn't even used to be outside with his T-shirt on and his hands up inside the T-shirt in the wintertime. You know, I don't know. These guys get in persona, you know, they get to rapping and they start believing their own hype. Bo got a deal because of who his uncle is, not because of his talent. I think Jay knew some guy, I forgot the guy's name at some label, and he did Jay a favor, and he signed Rusty Waters. Rusty Waters was Randy Allen and Bo. Now, Randy was 38 at the time, and Bo was about 21. And they were pretending to be from down south, rapping about cornbread and collard greens and all that, right? So they were essentially a gimmick group, you know what I mean? And Jay was notorious for signing gimmick groups like the Afros, even Onyx, but Onyx was a gimmick that popped, you know what I mean?
Right.
But it was always gimmicks, you know what I mean? So anyway, the night Jay got killed, the very next day, Randy and Bo went on a promotional tour. That shit doesn't sit right with me. And I'm not even like part of their circle. Like, I mean, your uncle get killed, your best friend and business partner get killed. You got a trash ass rap group. I mean, the tour ain't gonna make a difference. You ain't selling no records. You got to deal as a favor. Let's not act like you got to get out here and push that shit. This ain't into 36 chambers you talking about here.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
I do. I mean, you know, when we interviewed his mother after that, after the murder, you know, she expressed real concern that Bo and Randy, you know, had clicked up and, you know, had disappeared for 2 to 3 days. And in our interview with, and I compared it with what was on the Jam Master Jay documentary, because we talked to him, you know, 10 years ago. His story is the same. He said he was outside on the block, went to get a haircut, heard that they were shooting in the studio. Now, in our interview, he said that he waited a little while because he didn't have a gun on him. And, you know, he wasn't sure what was happening, and he wasn't armed, and he didn't want to put himself in harm's way. He may have said that in the documentary as well. But my point is he goes in and, you know, he said that he kicked Jay. And
that always stood out to me. Like, you see your family member, this is your uncle. That really, Jay was like his father figure for real. I don't know who his father was.
I just want to say this. What struck out as odd to me about just that sequence is that if you had, you know, and again, I'm not implying anything. I'm just simply trying to walk through what was said. You know, in the time frame that you get up there and you see somebody on the floor dead, you know, I guess the timing is he must have been in there right after it happened, because then he said the police came in, he got into an argument with the cops, and he left the studio. And, you know, that's, you know, when him and Randy Allen kind of, you know, went on the lam. I don't want to say on the lam, but they said they left, you know, and went on their tour. And Bo said, he told us that it was important for him to go on tour because this was his first deal, and that, you know, he wanted, I'm just saying, he wanted everything to work. Now,
his ass beat, man. I just got to say it, man. Like, if that's your priority when your uncle is dead, this is your first tour, it was a priority, and the man is dead in the studio. Something ain't right with you, bro. So make as many songs and name check me all you want, but nobody in their right mind would agree with that. And as far as him even kicking the dude,
Unless it happens exactly afterwards. I mean,
After, that's part of what I said to him when we had our exchange. You know what I mean? I said, did you kick him when you came in off the street, or did you kick him when he fell at your feet? You know what I mean? Like, and I ain't no rapper or nothing, but that's how I felt. Like that kick shit, man. Like, you don't see your loved one on the ground. And furthermore, if you come from the street, off the street, up inside the studio, there's some minutes that had to go by between the time Jay was shot and by the time he got there. Let's say at the very least 5 minutes, right? By that time, the blood is already pouring from Jay's head. What you got to kick him for, to think you thought he was playing? That's not Kool-Aid around his head, bro. That's his blood. What you kicking him for? Something, yo, man. See, and that's the thing. That's theorize too much, but
I understand.
Bullshit don't be sounding right to me with nobody. Only thing I know is my name don't belong nowhere in there. I didn't associate with any of these people. And at the end of the day, the police are looking for a big drug deal, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's just some typical nigga nonsense, bro.
You think there was some sort of altercation in the studio between whoever and...
I remember vaguely one account said something about the dude came in the studio, Jay stood up to hug him, then there was a tussle,
I've heard that. I've heard that Jay hugged the gunman.
Yeah, And also, let's be clear, too. There's stories about some dude named Uncle that nobody ever found out about. And then there was another guy named Goldie. Like, they blamed Supreme, they blamed me, they blamed other people who I won't name that the police made moves on. Like, how many people you gonna blame when you got all the people who were in the studio and none of them got arrested, man? Like, I don't know how that happened. And what I want to say is that, all it takes is to offer Tony Rincon immunity, or offer anybody who was in that studio immunity from prosecution, to just come clean. I in my heart, man, I don't believe that they conspired to kill Jay. I could be wrong. I think something went on, and we're dealing with some very not smart people. And I think at worst, they may have obstructed justice, most of them. I wouldn't be surprised if the man's death was some sort of accident, man. Like,
with Tony Rincon, he wasn't from Hollis, he was from Flushing. Just Jay's boy, who played video games with him. A guy who wasn't involved in the streets. Why would he obstruct justice? Again, I don't want to ask subjective questions to you, because I know these are all theory. But I guess what I'm saying is in the documentary, one of the interviewees calls Tony Rincon a coward. That's the word they use for him. He was a coward. And
was it Dave Seabrooks?
I think so.
Light-skinned Dave?
Yeah, bald head.
Yeah, he had the low, big forehead line.
Yeah.
Always trying to say, "Shaw, you think you're gigolo or something?" Yeah, okay, go ahead. We're going to get around to him in a second. Is that the same one who said something about me selling drugs?
Yeah, he's the one who said that you went to California with.
Cool. We're going to get around to him. Keep going.
And he said that he was an associate of you, Preem, Fat Cat, that he was in that world. But my question is, even Tony Rincon, why would he obstruct justice for 18 years? Especially if this was an accident. I mean, let me just say this. I'm sorry, I don't mean to talk over you, but if this had been an accident, indeed, and everybody had said this was an accident, you might be looking at a manslaughter charge, but when you obstruct it to this level, Tenard, Lil D, whether you like them, hate them, or whatever, they could be up for the death penalty on this.
They're both facing the death penalty.
They haven't decided whether they're going to pursue it But I'm just saying, you know, like this is a death penalty case.
Correct.
So, you know, would these people complicate it to this level? I mean, you know, I'm just saying, I agree with you. The drug dealing.
Thinking down the road, man, they thinking about street cred, you know, gangster cosplay. See, when it's cosplay, you don't really know what you're supposed to do. So you second guessing yourself the whole way. That's why I said they need to give Tony the blanket immunity, because Tony wasn't part of no damn plot to kill Jay or nothing. Tony got shot by an errant bullet in his ankle. Tony's married, got his wife and kids. I mean, he from Flushing, just like Steve LaBelle. They from the same neighborhood. And Steve LaBelle is actually the one that got Dave to do that damn thing. Steve was behind the scenes doing what people like Steve do. You know what I mean? And I'm not forgetting anybody for sullying my name. Because, see, what I got a problem with, aside from being wrongfully accused, is all these people that's supposed to be Jay's friends and family that lived off of him while he was alive. They keep trying to find ways to live off from when he's dead, man. Like, it's despicable. It's just like these are the friends and relatives that he had. Everybody's a fucking DJ, a rapper. Everybody's doing a documentary, but nobody's trying to find out what happened. How many documentaries and benefits and block parties, and I think Hurricane got some app now called Jay's Hat or some shit. Yo, it just don't stop, man. Like, yo,
I understand.
yo, what's up with y'all, man? Like, y'all get on these documentaries back to back, talking bullshit that you don't know. If they really cared about Jay, they would have been got justice for him. It ain't that hard, man. If Jay was my friend, when Bo and Randy came back from tour, I would have got some answers, man. And I'm not saying that they did it. I'm saying that those people in the studio know who did it. And for it to, at this late date, come down to Tenard and Lil D, Tenard living in the house with Jay, living with Bo. As a matter of fact, when Bo left the studio, from the Playboy article, clearly he went to his home and threw all Tenard's belongings in the street. So what did Bo know for him to, and who told him that? He went and threw all Tenard's belongings in the street because Tenard's clothes and everything was in the house with him and his mom and Jay's family house that Jay was probably paying for. And he just randomly assaulted this guy named Jalik or something like that. Jalik says Bo pistol whipped him or something. You know, I don't know. You know, but and then he went on tour. And we do know that Jay's mother, she was calling Randy and was like threatening him to send Bo home. His family wanted him home. Nobody can explain why he didn't go home, why he went on tour. Nobody can explain why he kicked Jay. Nobody can explain why when Marvin and Fonzo went on the radio to, you know, put pressure on Randy, Bo wasn't with his family. But when Randy went to rebut what they say, Bo was with him. This is just a whole clusterfuck, man. It's just like, and I get upset because like I'm on social media and people don't like my views or something, and they be like, "Yo, you killed Jam Master Jay." Like, my name don't belong in none of that. And
Right.
as far as Tenor go, let me say this before we move too fast. Tenor got arrested for several armed robberies. You got the court papers. Tenor, before that, he's probably had about 3 or 4 felonies already. I don't know how many were youthful or felonies.
Back to 84.
Yeah, man, he's been getting arrested for a long time. But he been getting arrested before that. See, you saw his adult record. You couldn't see his juvenile record. He was getting arrested when he was like 11, 12 years old for robbing delivery trucks and shit like that. Well, Tenor is what they call a persistent or persistent felon. he qualified for the 25 years to life under New York state law. And he qualified for life under the Fed 3 strikes law. You know, they gave Tut life under the 3 strikes law. You know what I mean? Tenard instead, he cuts a deal with the DA, and he implicates Little D and Big D. They give him a deal. I think he got 7 years for several armed robberies, despite being a persistent felon or whatever. Right before his time was going to run out, as it was coming to an end, the feds came and grabbed him and charged him with the same crimes under federal statutes. Right? His release date is 2022. I think he got like
April 2021.
21, right? Next year.
Yeah.
See? So as his date was coming up, they charge him with murder. Let's be clear. Tenard is not a nice guy. So the feds don't have no problem fucking him around. I got this thing that I say, you know, law enforcement, they don't necessarily solve crimes. They just close cases. You understand? And if you're going to close a case, I mean, there ain't a better candidate than Tenard to close a case with. You know, whether he did it or not, nobody's going to miss his ass. You understand what I'm saying? Like, I mean, this is the reality.
Yeah, I mean, he's been complaining that the police have been harassing him over the death of Stretch Walker and Jam Master Jay since 2002.
That's the other thing. Like, Jay's people went to the police and told him that Tenard killed Stretch. Nobody got no proof. It's just too much gossip.
Well, Tenard, a cooperating witness claims that Tenard admitted to being involved with Jay, the Jay murder, as well as
the Stretch murder.
The Stretch murder. You know.
You know what I mean? I mean, look, how convenient. And again, look, man, I don't care one way or the other. I don't have no dog in this fight, man.
Well, my thing is if he's admitting that, you know, that he was there, or he admitted it to a cooperating witness, you know, I was just baffled that he has pleaded not guilty to all of these crimes, and I know that could change as we get closer.
That's legal strategy, you know. Again, he was scheduled to be released next year, and they came and snatched him and gave him the case. They never liked him. If you're a cop, why would you like Tenard? When you look at his record, I mean,
it's off the chain. I mean, he even attempting to kill a NYPD officer in I think it was 93, 94.
Listen, man, not just his record on the street, but his record in the system. Like,
but don't you think that makes him a high candidate? Don't you think that makes him a high candidate?
Who's a better candidate to close the case on?
No, but I mean to legitimately have been there and have enough understanding to not snitch, to not tell, to be able to not fold under the pressure, you know.
He's a, you know, look, again, I'm gonna say this about
what I'm concerned about is Little D. You know, it just strikes me as, you know, when I got the news of the indictment, I can tell you that I was definitely expecting to see Tenard in there, without a doubt. I was in Atlanta with somebody who was in prison with Tenard and told me that he was bragging about, you know, being involved in the murder. Not much beyond that, but, you know, so that didn't surprise me.
Oh, wow.
But
look, man, all this is news.
But Little D, I mean, that threw me for a loop personally. You know, again, I'm not saying that he wasn't the second gunman or the second person providing cover. But I've always felt that it was one of two things. I didn't think that somebody was in there to rob Jay. I always felt that whatever happened was an accident, whether it was somebody coming in to rob Jay and, you know, let's just say
hand or something, yeah,
gets out of hand and the gun accidentally goes off and all of a sudden it's turned into something way more serious than anybody thought it would. That, or, I mean, maybe the feds just have the evidence. And
see, you know, when I tell you, I totally don't know what to make of all of this. they just all lousy motherfuckers to me, man. Like they either lousy or they parasites. Jay kept two kind of people around him, man. Like some really like terrible people like Big D.
Yeah.
Or some really parasitic people. You know what I mean? That just leached off him, man. I don't know why. I don't know why that's what he did or why he felt comfortable around those. I never saw any quality people around Jay, man. Not from Hollis.